Continuing reading Molasses Moon, where we left off, getting ready to start this part. This will be the 6th video reading. I left off saying, oh well, I could say live and learn, but I doubt I'll ever perfect keeping my mouth shut when I should. I'm better than I used to be, if you can believe that. Now here's the letter coming up now that you saw on the screen to the Jeff Herman Agency, sent March 2nd, 1994. 500 Greenwich Street, Suite 501C, New York, New York, 10013. Dear Mr. Herman, I've learned a lot from you. I'm now writing nonfiction. It's a marketing program for my fiction work. Since most agents representing fiction own adequate name brands to keep them busy and solvent, I've decided to try my luck with ulteriorly motivated nonfiction. Since you're praised in the project in which I'm now lost, Molasses Moon, in all fairness, I should give you the opportunity to read it. A copy of this letter will be merged into Chapter 3 of that work, of light-hearted, went to the wrong page. Now I'm going through pages here because I lost my page. Oh, let's see. Okay, since you're praised in the project in which I'm now lost, Molasses Moon, in all fairness, I should give you the opportunity to read it. A copy of this letter will be merged into Chapter 3 of that work of light-hearted, pithy humor, the true story of a writer attempting for a decade to become a fictional bestseller. I can legally call it a how-to after I succeed and see how I did it. Molasses doesn't compete with your how-to guides. My book should actually increase sales of yours as well as mine, and others if my sextet ever gets off the ground. Maybe you'd like to read the first 3 chapters of Molasses Moon, even if you don't want more clients or don't want to represent nutty, lighthearted humor. I'm hoping you've not written me off your list for asking you in my January 20th letter to return the Gilbert paper box which housed my New Moon manuscript. I'm embarrassed I asked. You wouldn't hold a grudge. Chagrined. And then I signed my name on that one. I'll tell you what, it's getting hot up here in this attic. My printer told me, but I already knew it. And I'm hungry, having skipped lunch, and it's 2 o'clock. I'm going downstairs. Enough is enough. I also have to pee. That will probably get edited, if I ever have an editor. If that line stays in and this book gets published, you'll know even editors can have a weird sense of humor. Rereading the letter to Herman prior to mailing it, I cringed, feeling like a pest. It's hard for me to approach where I haven't been invited, push gently back into the picture when I've been discarded. I haven't sent a note to Herman since February 14th, when I asked if he was requesting I keep in touch with reality rather than with him. Nor have I heard from him since New Moon Blues returned in January. His guide has been a grounding force in any case. I guess I'll have to wait and see if today's letter is seen as intrusion or intrigue. As I reread my sentence about knowing how to succeed in getting published after I've done it, I wondered if I was being a bit misleading. All of my books about Maya Gem, including this one, are more about dealing with failure than learning how to succeed. about not letting rejection and working in a vacuum get you down, about how to continually recharge, get up, and go again, in spite of being welcome, in spite of being unwelcome. Maybe battery recharging is as worthwhile a subject as success roadmaps. After all, people don't always succeed easily or quickly, especially if tackling the impossible. Rejection and frustration are facts of life. At the beginning of morning comes, I harangued frustration as the most abundant commodity on earth. I also mentioned that getting paid is an important part of recharging. Then I had to continue working without pay for 8 years. But I did it. I'm still here. I love my computer. I was lucky, though, that long before I had a computer, a couple weeks before the story of the rose bombarded my consciousness, an astrology client, a 70 years young, healthy, spunky lady, mentioned she typed manuscripts. She had done several for professors at Berkeley, who published scholarly works. I said I hadn't been thinking of writing anything that would require that type of service. We were both pleasantly surprised, yet not at all surprised, when I phoned 2 weeks later to ask if she would transcribe 6 60-minute cassette tapes, into manuscript form. It took me 2 days to record the story onto the 6 tapes. I worked at it full-time for 9 years and still haven't had the manuscript seriously read by a publishing professional. Of course, as you know, I've spent some of that time writing sequels to help promote the rose. One of Catherine's friends, Catherine was the client who typed the Rose in the Pyramid manuscript 7 times through revisions over a few months before she acted as my agent to submit it to publishers. One of Catherine's friends agreed to read the complete manuscript. The day after receiving the Rose, the friend declined Catherine's lunch invitation. When asked why, she said, "I'm reading Linda's manuscript, and I feel like I'm in a womb. I don't want to stop reading." Everyone, regular people who read fiction, who read the manuscript, raved it. A friend of Val Cady, of Val's Ice Cream and Cafe, formerly in Portland, Oregon, told him one day that she had just read a great book. He would love it. He wasn't surprised that the manuscript she was recommending was the pink one he had seen daily for a few months as I worked on revisions in his cafe. He had read it, hot off the press, daily in '85. Heck, he and his cafe were in it, in the true part of the fantasy. I'm not going to go into detail about the publication of The Rose in the Pyramid, December 17, 1987, by an LA publisher. It's too painful. I'll just say that Tom and I spent a hard-earned $8,000 to have the manuscript printed with more typos than I make, and not aggressively distributed or seriously promoted anywhere. I tried for a year to sell the book to stores in many towns in Colorado and in San Diego and LA. Or rather, I tried to get them to buy it and sell it. The value in that $8,000 spent was to learn in detail and forever that a novel will not be a bestseller without one of the large reputable publishing houses behind it as one of their lead books. Without this type of backing, a work of fiction is indeed tremendously lucky to grace any public bookstore, if only to be hidden face in on a back shelf. Contrary to what it may seem, I do know when a cause is lost and when to quit. On that sour note, I'll quit for a while, mailed a letter to Herman, and watched Star Trek. I had a dream about Captain Picard last night. His face frowning angrily, he growled at me that I was entirely too out of control. He couldn't allow such a wild card on his ship. It's nearly 4 o'clock. I proofread the Herman letter earlier, but hadn't mailed it yet. Keep in touch. Chapter 4. Whose? What would you think if you got a rejection letter signed yours? Not sincerely, just yours. I've actually received a few like that. I don't know what to think. I fired back a note to the first one I received, sharing a piece of my mind. I probably shouldn't have done that. Whenever I reread New Moon or Quarter Moon, I either swell up with pride or cringe at the letters I've written and merged into those books to document my progress, blaming Jennifer for those doozies. I hate to remind myself I also have copies of manuscript cover letters and queries from 85 and 86 BC, before computer. Those, I'm kind of glad, aren't documented in my sextet. Reviewing them is too revealing even to me. Some make my face into a beat. Others, I think, are really good. Actually spelled beat right on that one with 2 E's instead of B-E-A-T. Oh, how sometimes actually I do something right. And that, of course, isn't in the book. Okay, these letters composed on my Typestar didn't appear professional. The ones Catherine, I'll tell you more about her soon, wrote before that were professional, but presented me sort of like Richard Bach in Illusions, with Maya Gem seeming as real as Donald Shimoda. So it's no wonder I wasn't taken seriously in my early career days. But as years passed and I kept my nose to the grindstone and head in the stars, I seasoned. Well, I think. I could give Pinocchio competition with a nose that can touch the grindstone simultaneous to my head being in the stars. Yet with all due and true confessions, I should have been published to bestsellerdom or blacklisted by now. For all I know, I may have been. I know I'm not a bestseller yet, or I wouldn't be working in an attic in which the A-shaped ceiling allows me to stand upright only along a strip 1 foot wide and 6 feet long. Honestly, though, I work as well in this attic as I have anywhere. Kind of enjoy the place, except for having to be so damn careful climbing down the stairs and bumping into the ceiling once in a while, leaving long brown hairs dangling and nursing a screaming scalp. So back to the main subject of letter closings. Keep in touch, I like. I can do that. Yours? Why rub it in? I signed a few queries, yours to mine, which is appropriate, I think. But then I do think about what I write and mean every word, except for typos. I do change my mind and name once in a while. Once in a blue moon, I'm wrong about something. But speaking of people possessing other people, I've been wondering most of my life why there are fewer and fewer independent backbones being generated in the human race. Since Hegel gave Marx the bright idea of human beehives, finalized in the Star Trek Borgs, fiction has increasingly moralized the glory of power in numbers. Networking may be a good idea in some ways, but being a recluse with an iron spine, I've wanted to succeed in my own way and on my own. Then I want to own what I earn. Since I've been writing, cluster-oriented persons have advised I should belong to writing groups, attend conventions, join, connect, unite. I've paid enough dues already. My hackles go up every time I hear "merge thyself." I'll prove that an individual can make it working alone, writing letters to New York agents and editors from an attic in an isolated small town in Colorado, in the foothills of the wet mountain range of the Rockies. I do mean small, as in 400 adults, kids, goats, donkeys, and dogs. I'll prove that I, just I, can make it. If I do, then you'll know it's possible that you, just you, might have a chance to accomplish what you set out to do. To be honest, though, as I keep forcing myself to be, Tom, you know he's my husband, best friend, and playmate, you may not know he's also my employer, is providing a very appreciated assist to my efforts. Without his support in my work, I wouldn't have a roof over my head, food to cook, a house to clean, or a computer with time left over to write. So I'd better get to it. March 3rd, 1994. Here's the next letter. Miss Leslie Meredith, Executive Editor, Bantam Books, 1540 Broadway, New York, New York, 10036. I might break into song any minute here as Frank Sinatra. Dear Miss Meredith, nonfiction, light-hearted satire, Molasses Moon tells the story of a parapsychologist, me, working for a decade to launch herself as a fiction bestseller. Writing her satire sextet, an unusual cross between fiction and non, was a breeze. Publishing is an impossibility. In the 90s, international media conglomerate-owned publishing houses are sticking to name brand, sure things for financial integrity. I don't blame them. It's my job to convince the right person affiliated with one of these houses that my work would contribute to that integrity. Molasses Moon, written to a wide audience of commercial mass market readers and non-readers, reads rapidly and colloquially, in a rhythm of pithy pokes at the author, the industry, and the culture. A copy of this letter will be merged into Chapter 4 of this hilarious history of a writing project. If you'd like to see the first 4 chapters, please request them. Otherwise, I'll expect no response. Working to avoid the unsolicited slush, Linda G. Shelnutt. I don't know why I keep writing to Bantam. I have a file a couple inches thick of queries and rejections to and from that mega industry. BANTAM DOUBLEDAY DELL is one company, you know, as well as part of an international conglomerate of communications media. Well, yes, I do know why I keep writing to them. It's because I want a bright red rooster on the spine if morning comes, and I'd like to see the same publisher for all my work. But the rooster doesn't deal with novelists until they've proven they're nearing name brandom by having several books maintained on national bookshelves. An unknown is crazy or uninitiated to approach that house without an agent. I said I was nuts. I'd say I've been initiated, though, if several hundred state-of-the-art queries, a few hundred humdingers, and a few thousand no, never, not, non rejections are adequate fodder. Moo. Maybe I could call my next book Magic Moon, and have a Jersey cow as the heroine. I think black and white cows are pretty. They're popular lately in kitchen decorations. I'll put the letter to Leslie Meredith out of my mind now, as I do all queries once they're mailed. It's easier that way. Periodically, I review my file of unanswered letters and submissions, attempting to recharge them or give them some type of mental spotlight. I keep a file of each publisher, agent, and magazine, as well as a file by month and year of reaching out to the book industry. My stretched arms will have to make up for their short sight. I pray one day I have arms long enough to reach the eyes in the back of their heads. By now you may appreciate my repeating the titles of the other books in my sextet, so you can keep all this straight in your mind, if you're still awake. Well, are you? Still awake? Hey, you. Sorry, didn't mean to yell. I know you're there, somewhere, and I'm glad. Gives me such a sense of comfort. On with my title review. Full Moon Rising equals Morning Comes and allows John and Jennifer to get together, finally. New Moon Blues follows, then Quarter Moon Dews. The wild card is the Seed of Time, a Genesis story taking place at the beginning of time, in a place where Earth would have been if it had existed. Maybe I'll stop there today and leave it with a little bit of curiosity dangling. This is really kind of a fun project, reading this book and interjecting little quotes from now and then. And I hope you enjoy it. And if nothing else, it's keeping the spark going for me.